always just use it. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. 100%. Yeah. So what we see is that the known neighbor whenever you're possible, should they feel like he has to do something. Yeah.
Well, I think the standard labor thing.
Yeah.
Afternoon. It's good to see you all here. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this community. I just want to remind everybody that children are welcome to run free as they see fit, or can go up to the loft where Jill is currently offering programming. Today we are celebrating International Women's Day, and we're doing our sort of annual, I realize today this has kind of become an annual thing, an annual sermon called What Women Want. And every year I've been asking the question, what do women want? And because it is International Women's Day, and because March is, our theme is global community, we take the global perspective. With me today, co-preaching is Dr. Janice Marie Johnson, our commissioned lay minister. We also have with us Reverend Jude, our Minister for Community Engagement, our fabulous choir led by Jerry Brown and Darnell White. And so, let us begin. As we enter into worship, put away the pressures of the world that ask us to perform, to take up masks, to put on brave fronts. Silence the voices that ask you to be perfect. This is a community of compassion and welcoming. You do not have to do anything to earn the love contained here. You do not have to be braver, smarter, stronger, better than you are in this moment to belong here with us. You only have to bring the gift of your body, no matter how able, your seeking mind, no matter how busy, your animal heart, no matter how broken. Bring all that you are and all that you love to this quiet hour so we can worship together. Please rise in body or in spirit so we can light our chalice.
Spoken words of our chalice lighting are in your program. Please join me in reciting them. We light this chalice, the flame of our heritage. May it ignite hope in our lives, in the community, and in the world. Hymn, Gather the Spirit, hymn number 347.
Gather join with me in the unison affirmation that is printed in your order of service. Unto the Church Universal, which is the depository of all ancient wisdom and the school of all modern thought, which recognizes in all prophets a harmony, in all scriptures a unity, and through all dispensations a continuity, which abjures all that separates and divides, and always magnifies humanity and peace, which seeks truth in freedom, justice in love, and individual discipline in social duty, and which shall make of all persons one beloved community. Unto this church, and to all its members known and unknown throughout the world, we pledge the allegiance of our hands and our hearts. And it is this time in our service with our hands and our hearts, sometimes for folks, I invite you to greet your neighbor. Welcome, everyone. It's good to be together.
Mine?
All of you.
Oh,
All right.
no one was clear?
Let's all find our seats.
I'll report that. I will.
Can everyone find yourselves back seated and you are chatty Cathy's today. Come on, people. I often think if we just stopped there, like if we just snuck out and left you all, you wouldn't notice. Like you would just keep going. But it's time for our Lenten reflection, so let's center. This is the fourth week of Lent. Each week, we've taken time in worship for self-reflection. It's good for our spirits, to be honest, it's good for my spirit, to look at our own actions, to consider the places that we're doing well and the places we need to work on. So this is our time. We use the hymn we're about to sing to direct us in this reflection. And this week we've combined two lines. For each time greed has blinded us to the needs of others and for the selfishness that sets us apart and alone. I'm going to read it again and let's try and sit with it. For each time greed has blinded us to the needs of others and for the selfishness that sets us apart and alone. Let's just sit with that. Greed, selfishness, isolation. Can you feel that? Can you feel resistance to that? Can we let the possibility of that settle in? Can we sit with it at all? Or do we feel angry just considering it? Greed, selfishness, isolation. Might there be something to learn? Do we hold on to things? Are we afraid of letting go? Do we deny others because we're afraid there won't be enough? Let's just breathe into that. And the hymn we're singing is 1037, if you want to sing the refrain with us. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference. For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible. For each time we have struck out in anger without just cause. For each time our greed has blinded us to the needs of others. For the selfishness that sets us apart and alone. For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit. For losing sight of our unity. For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness. Pray with me. Holy Mother, Creator, Redeemer, Lover of all beings, we come with our hands open, our hearts open, our minds open, ready for the gifts of life. We are grateful for acts of kindness. We are grateful for moments of rest. We are grateful for deep connections with both planet and people. We are holding the people of Gaza today in their pain, and we ask for mercy. Spirit of life, we ask for a change of heart. We ask for compassion to liberate the people of Palestine. We beg today for revolutionary love to transform hate and fear. So many people are sick, are alone, are afraid, are hurt, are broke, are exhausted. May they all find an earth abundant with healing and hope. Let's call out the names of all the people we are holding in this prayer. I am holding Rachel, the Stevens Walters, Sam, Marianne, Martha, Lisa. Call out the names. Who are we praying for today? We're praying today for Aunt Lucille and her continued good health. We're praying today for Brenda's best friend, Carol, who's waiting for good news to stay in remission. Who else are we holding? There is joy and there is pain in all that's happening right now, right here and everywhere. Spirit of life, Creator, Redeemer, Lover of all beings, breathe in and through us. And together we say, Amen. Our March meditation is the Meditation on Breathing, number 1009.
Today about a story out northeastern India. They're known as Jataka tales. And they come about after the rise of Buddhism in India, Gautama, the Buddha. And they're stories about the past lives of the Buddha. And so this would have been in a Hindu world. Hinduism is where Buddhism is coming out of, remember. So you still, in India, have tales of the gods and the devas in it at this time. But this is a story about where the Buddha came from in the past lives. There was a day out in the jungle where there was a beautiful parrot that was flying about, as she often was, and she enjoyed all the beauty of the day. The story lightning struck a dry, desiccated a tree in the jungle that had fallen over and struck fire. And a terrible fire raged through the jungle in and the parrot called, "Everyone, look out, there's fire, run to safety." She flew to the heights and saw the fire traveling further and further in the jungle. And she witnessed some of the animals scurrying to safety and some trapped amidst the fire, not. And she was overwhelmed, the parrot, with concern for friends and strangers. She had an idea. There was water in the river. If she could get to the river, she could do something. And she flew straight like a dart to the river, dived into the water, and flew back up over the fire. Soaking in water, the drips fell down in the fire. She was filled with hope, and they fell in patterns and did nothing. But what was she to do? This is what she did. She ran, she flew to the river again, and again, back from the river, over the fire, just drops of water, the river, and feathers were covered in the soot, the smoke from the fire, and her eyes were burning red. And still, she went back and forth to the river. Well, high in the sky in the heavens, in the happy realms, the gods sat, beautiful, enjoying their honey foods, picked with their delicate fingers in their hands, feeding and looking down and saying, "What a silly parrot. She can't possibly do anything." All gods, but one God took pity and was moved to the plight of the parrot and took the form of a great golden eagle with golden eyes and flew down to the parrot to give sage wisdom to her and said to the woman, "You can't put the fire out this way. Fly to safety." And the parrot said, "Who are you to give me that kind of advice? I don't need that from you. I don't need a golden eagle coming down and telling me that I can't do this. This is all I can do, so I'm going to do it." And she flew off about her way, wasting no time with golden eagles. And the eagle watched her and was overwhelmed with another feeling of compassion and flew up in tears, falling down on the wood, turning into spurts of water, and the fire began to dissipate.
So we know that church doesn't happen on Sundays. Church is who we are in the world and how we connect all through the week. We don't announce everything that's happening, so reading our weekly email or checking the website is the best way to stay in touch. Here are a few things for you to note this week. We're co-sponsoring a humanitarian aid benefit for Gaza on Saturday, March 23rd at 7 p.m. It will take place at the First Unitarian Church in Brooklyn. Please join us. Today, after worship, is our Under 50 brunch. So if you're in your 20s, your 30s, or 40s, please join us. Our Zoom art community is back online. Please join Ellen and others the second and fourth Thursdays of every month for a shared art experience. Sunday, March 24th, is our quarterly congregational meeting. If you are a voting member, please do join us online at 11 a.m. And now our ushers are going to pass a plate for donations. We are very grateful for your presence, for your willingness to be a part of building this world we dream about. And we are always grateful for your financial support. Thank you for being with us today.
Women under the Taliban in Afghanistan weren't allowed to work or go to school. They could barely leave their homes. And that changed. And for 20 years, women thrived as they had before the Taliban. Women went back to being doctors and lawyers and teachers. Girls went to school, which gave them options and hope. 3 years ago, the Taliban returned and it all ended. Again. The Taliban took over and women were driven back into their homes. So every year I ask this question, what do women want? And the answer really changes person to person, nation to nation, year to year. Rights are expanded and contracted again and again all over the world. Bodily autonomy, freedom of choice, safety, longevity, access, given and taken, won and lost again and again. Brooke Shields was reflecting on her experience as an over-sexualized teenager in Hollywood with Katie Couric this week, and said that in the midst of all that happened, she knew she needed to go to university. As the media was devouring her, as she was filmed and photographed for the enjoyment of adult men, she knew she had to go to college because in the end, an education was something no one could take away from her. Years ago, I was in conversation with a professor at Harvard who had been homeless. She was broke, not making enough to pay the rent, and without a kitchen. And with so little money, access to food was complicated. She couldn't shower regularly either, so she was often cold and hungry and smelly. She said there were programs that could help, but she was often dismissed or ignored because of how she presented. But she said her middle-class upbringing had given her something no one could take away. It was her sense of entitlement. She knew she was entitled to a life of dignity, even if she didn't have money. And it was that conviction that ultimately shifted things for her. So what are the things that women want that can't be taken away? I asked this question in the context of having our reproductive rights removed recently by the Supreme Court. My mother fought hard and was dedicated to getting those rights for women, and 50 years later, they were taken away. So what do we want? What do we have that can't be lost? Dr. Janice Marie Johnson, our commissioned lay minister, is going to tell her own story. Inherent in her story is an answer to the question of what can't be taken away. Our histories, our ancestors, our lineage. No one can take that away from us, no matter who or where we are. We all stand right now in this moment on the shoulders of those who went before us. We were born into a story, born into a history, born as the next in a long line of ancestors. Whether that long line includes abuse or neglect or resilience or joy or dreams broken or realized or maybe all of those things, we are because of those ancestors and the trails they forged for us. There's this exercise I do with groups sometimes. It's called I Am From. Years after being introduced to it myself, my middle schooler came home with the exercise. It apparently comes from a poem. So I have now become very familiar with the poem and the process itself. And the idea really is that we begin by listing people and things from our past that define us and naming them as a way of telling our own stories. Have some of you done this, the Where I Am From exercise, or do you know the poem? Some of you do. So it's things like food that feels like home, a sound you miss, a game you used to play, a plant, a place you would go. the feel of favorite clothing. We would go around and name those things, really creating spontaneous poetry. So where am I from? It sounds something like this. I am from weekends with my Italian father cooking big pots of gravy, from the sound of my grandfather's full-chested laughter, and my mother playing piano from the 13th floor of her Bronx apartment. I am from catching fireflies at dusk, from generations of tulips in the front yard, from Saturday mornings at the dance studio at the Hudson River Museum with Miss Charlotte. I am from a wool blanket covering me in the black of a brown Buick on the way home from Passover. We are who and what and where we are from. We are the stories we were born into as much as the stories we create while we're here. What can't be taken from us is the wisdom, the hurt, the recovery, the tangled lineage passed on to us from those who went before. When we gather our strength for the challenges facing us, we're going to need to pull from behind us and from within us as women and men and genders across the spectrum have always in the world, all through history, because it is our stories, our ancestors, and the wisdom of our grandmothers that they can't take away from us. Janice Marie will tell us more about who and what and where she is from. We're a little sound challenged today, have you noticed? Just, be grateful that you can't hear the radio at the moment. Thank you.
I'm honored to share snippets of my history, my story with you here and now. Today I honor my ancestors, especially my grandmother, Emily Adina Johnson, Miss M to most who knew her. I'll give you a little cultural context regarding who she was. She was, like most of my family, from Jamaica, or I might say from Bacayad, from Jamaica, island of blue maho and laughing waters, of indigenous Arawak and Taino Indians. Then waves of migration, forced and unforced, followed. Enslaved Africans snatched from the motherland by Europeans. Chinese indentured servants, Indian indentured servants, Middle Eastern merchants, white owning class, etc. My grandmother was a product of her time, and she was a rebel. She was equally comfortable cooking in her kitchen, organizing protest marches. Both were hers to do. She was a woman dedicated to co-creating an independent Jamaica, one that could thrive without the shackles of colonialism that had formed our history for 300 years. Miss M was a nationalist who fought mightily against the inequities of wealth between native and British residents. And Miss M was also a seamstress, an excellent one. Nowadays, this fashionista would have been called a fashion designer, and a sewist. I'm blessed to have received the gift of sewing from her. Miss M, the fierce feminist that she was, had little use for colonial attire in tropical Jamaica. She brought a sense of Caribbean fashion to Jamaica, a sense of pride too, and I've been blessed to have received my fashion sense from her. She shared her talent with young women, encouraging them to be independent. She did this by taking her beloved Singer sewing machine outside, moving her sewing room to her porch. She was a people person who loved when young women asked her about sewing. She welcomed them, and with a generosity of spirit, taught them to sew. She did so to help them gain a measure of autonomy, of independence, especially as providers for their families. She cheered them on in their nascent efforts to their success as seamstresses who could earn a living for their skills. When Miss M's porch became overcrowded, she established the Community Sewing Center in Kingston that thrived for many years. As she went about town, she was always warmly greeted by her sewing students. Now that story is especially important to me because I had forgotten all about sewing until a few weeks ago, when I was reminded that I too have the gift of sewing. Last month, my daughter Lena and granddaughter Simone were visiting in New York. On Saturday, Lena was attending an exhibition of fabric art that her dear friend was participating in at the Textile Arts Center in Park Slope, Brooklyn. Lena and Simone loved the show so much that they were returning to see it again the following day, and they convinced me to join them. It was a wonderful exhibition. On our way out after the exhibition, I stopped short. I gazed into a huge room with a huge conference center table with 12 shiny Singer sewing machines ready for a 3-hour sewing class. Well, the 3 generations of us signed up for the class, and we had a blast. At the end of the 3 hours, I had sewn a jacket. Lena and Simone had each sewn a pair of shorts. Of course, the pieces of fabric were pre-cut. That made it easier. I want to give a shout out to Hekima Hapa, who taught the class. She's an independent fashion designer from Brooklyn. A Black woman, the founder of Black Girls Sew, a wonderful not-profit organization committed to positively impacting its community through education in sewing, design, and entrepreneurship. She also co-authored with Leslie Ware an important book entitled Black Girls Sew: Projects and Patterns to Stitch and Make Your Own. I don't understand how over these many years I had actually forgotten that sewing was always a part of my life. When my twin sister and I were in undergraduate school, we had a successful small business sewing wedding party dresses, leather coats, bikinis, baby clothes, etc. And we earned good college money. My ancestors paved the way for me to recognize the importance and urgency of empowerment. My aunt, Dr. Joyce Lilith Robinson, loved books from an early childhood. I think I got that love of books from her. No surprise to my family, She became director of the Jamaican Library Service and leader of the Jamaican National Literacy Program. After that, she set up an institute to address national unemployment problems among young people, especially young women. The Human Employment and Resource Training Agency, the HEART Agency. Then after retirement, she opened a consultancy offering services in adult education, management, and skills training. Now, born in an era where male domination was very much in vogue, my Aunt Joyce held her own in several national positions that were considered men's work. The African American poet Cillian Green reminds us that each woman is like a step in a staircase that continues to go up. Green's work, rooted in a cultural place of ancestral connection and spiritual truth, speaks deeply to me. Fadia Sahad Samira Al-Tuwarji, both of the World Bank, remind us that gender equality and women's empowerment are not merely slogans, and nor is International Women's Day simply an occasion to celebrate the success and highlight challenges. It is actually an opportunity to reaffirm that investing in women and girls is the right and smart thing to do, to reap the significant benefits of the so-called gender dividend. Let's close gender gaps with impacts that will last beyond the pandemics of COVID and all the isms that we collectively encounter. There's a Jamaican expression, "Wiliko but witalawa." In English, it means something like, we may be small in stature, but we are strong. Thanks to those who came before, I grew up believing that I could be anyone I wanted to be. Today, Miss M and Aunt Joyce would remind us that this belief is everyone's birthright, and that it's up to each of us to ensure that it is also everyone's legacy. Thank you.
Join me in our chalice extinguishing, which you'll find on the back of your program. Knowing how quickly the flame of truth may be extinguished, how easily the chalice of fellowship broken, let us be vigilant in faith, keep peace in our hearts, and make care for one another the watchword of our lives together. So our light goes out everywhere into the world. Our light goes out everywhere healing and hope are needed. Let us go in peace to love and serve this world and one another. It's good to be with you.